Take your time.
Hello, and welcome to Shimmer Office Hours this week. Ideally, officers we used to record, we don't record, and we ask and discuss any questions or uh, complexities or some thoughts or discussions that you or we might be working on in and around Shimmer, usually tech itself, Shimmer and Shimmer EVM. This particular call will be dividing into two different sections. One will be focused around talking about Shima itself, the Shima EVM itself, and the second part, then we will have the normal things that we have where we can talk about or discuss anything that you want to you have some questions or something. This call, along with the next 3 to 4 calls, the officers will be recorded. So heads up. Ideally, the officers are not recorded, so that's what is changed for this particular session. And with that, just let's get started. Before we get started, does anybody have any question or clarification that you want to have? Go through? Not, we'll get started. Worries. We will also come back and answer any and all questions that you might have. So there's always time for our questions. Um, okay, trying to figure out how to change windows. Like very first world problems. Okay. Um, so now you should be able to see my screen, which should be showing the wiki. This is where, so this particular, today we'll just discuss Shima EVM for the first half an hour, and the next half an hour, we can again go back to our usual Q&A stuff or normal discussions. Um, for Shima EVM, in case we don't know, today we will just cover the basics around what it is, how to sort of set it up on your local machine for development purpose, the architecture as a whole, and everything from the basic perspective that we would want to understand. The next session, which will be next week, we will discuss about setting up your the WASP chains and different modifications that you can do on top of it. And we will also deploy an app and we'll try to interact with it. And the third session, we will have actually the second session we will do the MetaMask and hardware and remix part. Third session we will do the app part, the DApp part, and the fourth one will be around. It's very tentative, the fourth one, so I don't want to give any false promises, but hopefully we can cover examples from Magic contracts. So today we'll just do an introduction and basic setup. Let's get started. If you're not aware of basically the structure that the IRO smart contracts follows, it actually sits as a layer two. So the entire ISP chain sits as a layer two on top of the UTXO ledger, which is the current Hornet or the Shimmer node. The Hornet nodes are run and it's anchored onto every sort of WASP node on top of it, right? And so this is sort of like a very basic architecture. But if you're interested in reading more about it, there's the ISC white paper. Feel free to dig deeper into the ISC white paper. It's very, very detailed, and you'll find a lot of your answers from the architecture point. But on a very overview, broad level, this is how it sort of looks. And each WASP node can have as many WASP chains as you want, and every WASP chain now will have two types of VMs or virtual machines. One is the WASM VM, which is the WebAssembly one, and that can run Rust, Go, and TypeScript at this point. So you can write your smart contracts in Rust, Go, and TypeScript. And the other one is EVM, where we'll focus more right now. And this is actually already live on the Shimmer EVM testnet has gone live for a while now. A lot of projects have been testing it as well. So have we. So we'll sort of focus on this for now. Now, EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine, came up with Ethereum, the blockchain itself. And they brought up also this language called Solidity, in which the smart contracts are written. Now, smart contracts are essentially, I mean, from a traditional perspective, neither very smart nor are contracts, but it's just a piece of code you can think which resides on a decentralized network. And this decentralized network is what the chain is. Now, what makes this contract special is that it's on a decentralized network, so and a decentralized distributed network. So essentially, anybody can look at all the transactions that is happening, all the interactions that is happening with this piece of code. So it's very easy to sort of audit, and that's where and interact with a lot of people. So things like accountability, coordination, and trust uh, became a major selling point in establishing the role of blockchains and distributed networks. And recently, we have sort of adopted that for our own L2, as have a lot of other networks over the last some 8 years, since 2015-ish, since Ethereum came out and has been popular since then. And we are going to also try to go through these. So if you want to set up your own, get started very quickly, this is a quick start guide, which Sebastian was kind enough to create, and we'll sort of keep on adding more and more things in here. So you will see a lot of news about different partnerships and different integrations that are being available slowly, on Shimmer EVM. Like recently, Pyth was available, so now you can do price oracles and stuff. So we'll add those links over here as well, so you can know about that. And everything that you need to know about how to set up Shimmer EVM can be found on this page very quickly. If you just want to, get started and get going. But if you want to dig deeper into, how to use, and you want to learn more about different sort of compatibility and what is possible, what is not possible, and so on, then please feel free to read deeper into it. From deploying a chain and so on. And then there's magic contracts, different types of toolings which is available, and all that. But today, we're going to focus on just setting up our node, which is the ISC node, the WASP node. The WASP is the node software name. And there are two types of deployments which is available at this point. One is the node Docker setup, which is in this particular repository. And this is, you have two flavors in here. One is Chrysalis, which is for the IOTA mainnet, and one is Stratus, which is Shimmer. We are concerned with Shimmer at this point. So if you're setting up on a VPS or any sort of remote server, maybe cloud or non-cloud, basically anything production level or something that you are sort of experimenting with a bunch of group of people, then this particular setup makes more sense because it's very complete and has a lot of additional integrations like SSL certificates that you can generate from, let's encrypt and integrate, and so on, like adding neighbors and as such. But let's say you want to just get started and for your local development, and you want to set up something to just get started, right? So you can just go to this one, which is more for a local setup. And we will be following this today and try to have an up and running sort of a Docker setup for us. So we can just look into that, okay, we have an active node running on our machine, and then we can maybe do something with it. We won't do something with it today. We'll just set up the node, and then we can talk about other things. But let's just try to do that. For this, you will need a running Docker. If you're on Linux or something, you might already have Docker running. In my system, I will need to run a Docker. So the Docker is starting right now. And this is my local setup for Docker desktop. So let it just start. I think the screen is stuck on something, right? Sorry about that. Hang on. Okay. Right now the screen is moving. Cool. So this is my Docker desktop setup that we have, and what we're going to do is we're going to create an image, and we're going to run a container of Docker. So what is this? If is anybody here not aware of what exactly Docker images and containers and volumes, all of these terms mean? Just let me know. Meanwhile, I'll just clean up my previous setup so that we can start from scratch. If you have if you have troubles with this push to talk thing, you can always write it on chat, and we can read it from there. Okay, so basically volumes are, you can think of like an entire storage units, right? Images are what we run, and when we compile into something, and then those are created as images, which we can also distribute to other people. And then containers is what we essentially run after. You can also access these things from your say command line if you're more accustomed to command lines. You can access it from there. So I have a bunch of images here running created, but I don't have a WASP image created. Can someone tell me if this font is too small or if it's okay to continue?
Looks fine.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the first step is that you need to, because this is inside this repository, you need to set this repository up first. Just clone this repository. Make sure you're on develop branch. Any other branch things might work, might not work. It's up to you. But develop branch things mostly will be working. It's the active development branch that everybody uses. So just clone this repository using whatever way you prefer. And once you have done that, you have to go inside tools and then local setup. So let's go inside tools and then let's go inside local setup. All right, so we have a couple of files over here. We have a Docker compose file, which is all we need essentially. So let's follow the instructions from here itself. And what it says is just to run Docker compose full. What this will do is will fetch all the images from the remote machines to your own machine. So you will have all the images ready to go. So first we'll do that. And at any step, if somebody has questions, feel free to ask it. Either unmute yourself and ask, or you can also put those on the chat. This step will take a couple of minutes because it's the first time that we are getting all the images onto our local system. So let's just give it a minute and then we will proceed. Should be done in time now. And yeah, it's done. So now if we just go back and see that, we'll see that the images are now available on our local system, on our Docker, and will also be available if you just want to do Docker images. It's a little difficult to find in here, but we'll find it there. So there, the images are there, so we are good to proceed. And let's look at the next steps, which is to create dedicated volume. You can also not create dedicated volume, so it's always better because it's easier to delete and to restart, work-wise. And so we created this one volume for honestness DB and the other one for WASP DB. Very simple two-step. And now you'll see that there are two volumes created. Doesn't have much size right now, 8 kbh. And then we just need to run docker compose up -d. This What this will do is this will now use those images and it will start containers for us, right? So we have running containers now. And as you can see, the size of the volumes have also increased, right? So it has sort of started using those for running the containers itself. And yeah, that's all you need. The things are up and running. So we'll just go to localhost watch dashboard. If you go to the dashboard immediately and you see that the nodes are offline, don't worry too much. It just happens that sometimes it takes a little more time to get started. But our node is up and running right now. We don't have any chains. We have one peer, which is enough for setting up and getting started. And there are some components that you can look into, like this configuration, right? So you can see where the INX plugin is. So if, let's say, you want to just run the Hornet node or something, then you can use also this endpoint to run your own WASP node from scratch. We're not going to do this in this session, but yeah, that is also possible. And the rest is basically peering info. So if you want to run nodes, you can use that to peer. Again, but just for development purposes, all that is not really necessary. But if you want to sort of go through, you can. This is mostly information about the base token. On the Shimmer mainnet, it's actually SMR, the Shimmer token on the Shimmer EVM, and the decimals are still 6, so that sort of matches. So we can actually test in the scale. Users, obviously, if you want to change your password or something, you can do that, and of course log out. Yeah. So we have this up and running now, and now we can sort of do other things with it. Now that's all about getting started. Now, if you want to you're done with whatever development you're doing, and you want to stop it, you can also sort of stop by just running Docker compose down, because it's running in the background, so there's no active command to kill, so we won't be able to do that. But yeah, we can just run Docker compose down, and it will sort of stop. Try to stop it. Let's stop one by one, or you can just go to here and you can just click on all of these and just click on this, and it will stop from here as well. But yeah, we have a good command to run, so we do that. And after that, if you want to delete the volumes, you can also do that. This will also clean up space from your machine. Let's say you have not, like so far, we have not done anything except for just running it, right? So we can still delete it, and we don't have to worry that any data we are losing or something. And now all the containers are stopped, so you can see that the containers are stopped. But as you can see that this has accumulated some size. So if you are low on very low on space, although this is not taken up too much space at this point, so we can sort of afford it to have at least this much of space taken up. But if it has taken up too much of space, you can always delete the volumes, and you can restart from scratch later on. Some of the important API points are given here from the API point, the dashboard. API points is not really necessary for development purposes, at least right now. It's mostly used for internal settings like setting up the additional peers and additional trusted nodes and as such. So you can probably ignore that. All you need is the dashboard as of now. Get started with your development. Hornet API is kind of important, and faucet and dashboard, but you can also get the faucet from your local system itself. Try to actually look at that as well. We'll try to run this again, and over here, this node is offline. Just give it a second. Right, and we can actually access the faucet from here as well. So you can just give any test address, and you will receive some tokens in the form of this CEST1 and something. But this will again only work on your isolated system. So if you want to test out something, this is an important way to do that. If you want to look into, again, might not might not work. But yeah, the faucet sort of works. If you are testing it out on your, let's say, local area network, LAN or something, you can also local tunnel it and forward your ports and open it up for others to use. By using these, we can actually start using WASP CLI, and we can use WASP CLI to do a bunch of stuff like start adding, creating a chain, and then we can do a lot of other things. Once we create the chain, then we can sort of connect it to the Shimmer EVM, so it goes on to other activities that we can do. There are more options available here from the repository, and this is how you can set up a chain, add your peering info, and so on. You can request funds, and then there's chain management, like the rotating set of validators, or changing government node access, and so on. And this is that is important to just set up your WASP node and get started with your local development. All right. But again, this is an optional if you want to do everything on your local system. If you just want to connect to a node and just get started, all the endpoints are mentioned here. So you can always just connect with one of these and get going. We also have a EVM toolkit where you can just connect your wallet, get some funds, and then start using them. Or if you want to also add it manually, add the network manually to your wallet, all the information. We'll do these parts in next week's session, but today we can just leave it at setting up the node part. So with that, I'll sort of conclude the first part of this officers, and next half we can go back to discussing any questions that you have about this or anything around this, or it can be completely unrelated as well. So anybody have any questions that they would want to get started with? Or we can go ahead with the general questions that we usually do. And again, feel free to try it out and let me know if you are facing any issues. I'm gonna leave this as comment here. Adrian says, set. All right, is that German? Sorry, I don't know German, but okay. Cool. Any questions? Please feel free to go on. Are we going to make VPS installation today? No, we are not. But if you face any issues, feel free to let us know. It's straightforward. But we are only concerned with right now the development setup. This is also pretty similar setup, just that you will need to just give an email ID over here and replace with your own domain name. Then you'll have to run through a couple of other configurations. All right, you have a problem with the VPS setup, please go on. Are you able to sort of are you able to share your screen, by the way? Sorry, unmute yourself and talk. If not, that's fine as well. If I have a Hornet node, can I connect several WASP nodes to that? Yes, we can. We can connect as many WASP nodes. It's an anchor, right? So we can anchor on multiple WASP nodes to a single Hornet node. What if WASP API is not wise? Okay. So because we don't really need it for development purpose at this point for Shimmer EVM specifically. So because our focus is just on the Shimmer EVM part, all we need is the JSON RPC and chain ID to get started. So that's why. But we will need it if we want to connect more nodes or and stuff, and for the WASP config files and all that. But those are, we can sort of not focus on those as of now. That's why I just skipped over all that. Do I talk to Hornet node if I want to deploy a smart contract? Essentially, we don't really talk to the Hornet node directly at all, right? We just deploy a smart contract on Shimmer EVM, and then the Shimmer EVM takes care of doing all the state, creating the block parts, and then anchoring the states on it. So we essentially don't need to even think about what is running on the L1 from if we are just developing a dApp. It might even be Shimmer today. It might be IDA tomorrow, or you can connect you can connect Hornet or Go Shimmer or anything. But for us on the dApp development level, it remains sort of, it doesn't really matter. Can't speak even when I am unmute. I think there might be some push to talk settings that you will need to configure on Discord, but that's fine. And probably do that later or while we're doing this. Here's the problem. I made a VPS installation. Everything is working pretty well, but when I try to get the token to my MetaMask, everything seems working well, but in the end, I don't have token. All right, so this is your MetaMask connected to connected properly to the Shimmer EVM network itself, or the network that? Oh wait, you are doing a VPS installation on your own. So is it connected to your EVM endpoints? Because otherwise, even if yes, it's connected to the custom network, all right. How do you verify that? So, for example, let's say you can try to connect, let's say let's say remix, right? You can try to connect remix to the injected network of MetaMask, and you try to deploy contract and see if the transaction is actually happening on your it's coming up on the logs, either on the dashboard or on the Docker logs. And assuming that you have already done that, still not showing up, then I'm not very sure. We'll have to go through the entire logs or something. So we can do that as well if you want to maybe share over here. But I think you already shared on the EVM contracts dev channel, right? I imagine you're already talking with Jorge on this. Is that still going on? Or maybe he will respond going through it. Would not recommend sharing your config on this call because today's call is being recorded. So, but otherwise you can DM either Jorge or me, or we can, yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, network config would be great. Actually, we can have to share that. Okay. Do I need to maintain a WASP node to be able to deploy a smart contract on Shimmer? Again, Not necessary. The EVM JSON service only talks to the committee or to all the WASP. All the WASP nodes which is connected in the committee will be aware of it. But we don't really need to maintain a WASP node at all. It's like using the Alchemy or Infura endpoints uh, in instead of setting up your own Ethereum nodes, right? So it's similar to that. If you want to maintain your own nodes, you can. If you want to connect it with the official the committee itself, you can do that. For the testnet, it's not available, but for the mainnet, there will be probably. But again, if you just want to connect and deploy a smart contract, you don't need it at all. You can just connect using the testnet endpoints. And you should be able to connect. You can also just open the EVM toolkit and click on that connect wallet button, and your MetaMask will be connected from there. So there's the link where you can interact with EVM, the JSON RPC URL and chain ID. Yes, the JSON RPC. Yes, Adrian, the JSON, absolutely. Adrian is right. From there, started with every chain on every WASP node. You can also change your chain ID if you want. There's a by default, and you can just go to a deploy smart contract chain over here in this link, and there's a EVM chain ID flag that you can pass, and pass your custom chain ID as well if you want. Along with there's some other configurations like gas ratio and block key amount. Do all of that configurations. By the way, Frank, Adrian, your mics are working. You can talk. You know.
No,
Yeah.
no, I can't. I'm good.
Cool. Have another problem. I deployed a contract on public Shimmer testnet. I made a transaction, but I did not receive event associated to this transaction. Not really. We got this one report on this that the events were not working, but then we tested and the events were actually working. So it might be that you might have tested at a bad time when a new deployment might have happened. Just try it again. If it keeps on happening, feel free to come back and post it on the EVM channel itself, and we can again take a look. But I think the events are working fine at this point. No, actually, Remix is not at all the recommended editor. We would recommend actually Hard Hat more than Remix, because a lot of things in Remix does not work properly. But Remix is just easy to use because it's on the browser and you can actually look into the different functions. It also generates a UI for the smart contract functions to interact with, so it's actually easier. But would recommend rather Hard Hat for it. Yeah, absolutely. So if you go into the tooling section, there's a tooling section for Hard Hat as well. I'll share the link here. And it's quite easy to actually connect and get started with the Hard Hat. We also have a video tutorial about it. And I'll also share another tutorial on Hard Hat that was. So you can just follow this tutorial as well. It will take you through deploying a smart contract using Hard Hat and also verifying it. So with Remix, we can't verify a contract, by the way. And on Block Scout right now, the verification that UI is very messed up. I think there's a bug there. The team will work on it. But with Hardhead, we can verify the contract. That's the only way we can verify a contract right now. And you should verify a contract if you would want other people to sort of look into your smart contract and validate that, and also interact with it from the Explorer itself. Do all of that. And sometimes when you click on verify, like run the verify command using Hardhead, it might give you a hard time. But if you just wait a couple of minutes and again try again, it will just work. It's nothing to do with the Hardhead functionality. It's just that it's a weird call. So sometimes because of network congestion or whatever, because the testnet right now there's limited capability as well. It might not respond in time. A heads up. Any other thoughts or questions? Silent. But I'm assuming that there are no questions right now. So feel free to try these things out. And in the next week, we will try to cover setting it up on your MetaMask. And we'll use Remix and Hardhead both, and we'll show how to deploy a contract, the entire cycle of it. Yeah. If there are any other tools, I think we saw one Brownie somebody was using, also which is mostly used for Python development, writing contracts in Python and then compiling it on EVM. Right, once it worked, but after that, if somebody faces any issues with that as well, you can let us know. We'll try to test it. And if there is any other tool that any of you use, feel free to put that up as well, and you can see how to, if there is any issue with the other. Okay, if no more questions, if somebody would like to share what they are working on or getting stuck or thoughts, feel free to do so. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording right now. The rest 10 minutes or so we can just with